Beneath a Waning Gibbus Moon by Martha Mollison of Pennant Hills, 2120. Narrated by Janine Penfold. I find myself on the far curve of life, unsure of what's ahead, making fewer plans than before, and more often looking back over the fullness of my years. As I sit in this gentle summer darkness and listen to the crickets and raucous frogs, I feel less connection with their urgency and more in tune with the soft shirring of the gum leaves at the back of the garden. I watch the bright gibbous moon push up past the branches of the macadamia and display herself in her newly, more restrained, curvaceousness. Her shape reminds me of my eldest granddaughter's profile today as she stood at the water's edge, silhouetted by the sparkling waves. She hasn't told me of her pregnancy yet, but I can see the subtle changes. I said nothing, of course, because when she miscarried her first, I had made so much of the expected baby, telling everyone I knew that I was mortified at having to walk back all my happy predictions. Poor love, the loss was far more painful to her, and I had made it worse. Never again will I pry or broadcast. When she tells me this time, I'll give her a hug, kiss her forehead, and try not to get teary. The moon is so beautiful tonight, so luminous, despite the fact that she's clearly transitioning and will soon be just a half of herself, and finally just a sliver. She makes me think of my mother in her frail final years, as she shrank away to merely a whisper. The moon's dance of disappearance reminds me that I, too, am on the same pathway to... I switch away from those unwelcome images. Regrouping my thoughts, I recall those rich and fertile days when my own body had been moon-like, swelling round and huge, then waning with the birth of each of our children. I remember how when the children were young, we were occasional moon gazers, lying on a blanket in the back garden, spying for satellites and shooting stars. Sometimes we cuddled together, imagining we were crammed inside a spaceship, travelling to a new planet. In those summer moonlit nights, we learned the pleasure of being quietly together, away from screens and phones and other distractions. A little human cluster that was us. I smile when I think of the tangle of sweaty young limbs as we laughed and jostled with each newly voiced imaginary space adventure. My thoughts follow those children as they grew up and moved on. I think of how my grown son, now living half a world away, gazes at the same moon we shared in his childhood. The growth and loss of her fullness shines into his window as it does mine. I imagine him beaming a message out to the moon and it bouncing back to me. What would it be? Then I fancy I can send him a message too. I miss you. I think more about our moon, the moon we shared as a family. So predictable, getting on with her routine, with her monthly business of changing. Maybe I've lived too much like the moon myself, steadfast, getting through the work of each day, unwavering, self-contained, undemanding, but also, I think, somewhat fixed, inflexible. Then I'm struck by how the moon is actually lit up by another body. She generates no light of her own. Beautiful as she appears, is she anything more than a cold rock on a fixed path? Does she even have another side? What's really there behind all that reflection? My daughter put her hand on mine. Mum, who are you now that Dad's gone? I wept. Why had he gone? You have to find your own self now. There's lots more life to live. I had to explore that shadowed side, those parts I had tamped down to keep the peace. I had been his wife, their mother. These recent nights, the moon's smooth, relentless waning reminds me that in life's passage, there's no chance to go back, retrace steps, make adjustments, erase mistakes. Amends can only be part of moving on in the ever-forward progress through time. Suddenly, a powerful owl appears across my sky view, silent as her long wings stroke the air. She and her mate live their own cycle of birth and death in the bush nearby. And my life cycle? In moontime, I'm past the fullness, the middle, still shy of 3/4, but getting closer. What's that in human years? Between 60 and 70? I haven't completely lost my shine. There's some life in me yet. But what about that last quarter? A slow diminishment, an unstoppable fading to oblivion? I ponder, what if there were another life after this one, a regeneration of oneself, like the new moon? A new life, separate from the past, a chance for a fresh start. What if there were many new lives in succession, a continual renewal? My thoughts are running away now, but I'm sure I've heard of something like this. What was it called? Why do words hide from me these days? Reincarnation. Yes, that's it. Flesh again. Could that be real? The moon's coming and going is simply an illusion, like a smoke and mirrors act. She actually doesn't change at all. She just appears to. But I know I'm changing. My stiffness, my tiredness tells me so. My waning is undeniable. The powerful owl flies past again, in the other direction this time. She has a small furry creature in her talons, heading home to feed her snowy, moon-eyed chicks. I feel blessed to glimpse her nightly busyness as she goes about her duties, as I did. Her life follows its own path, as mine did. Both of our lives may proceed inexorably, each in its own time, but I feel a warmth toward her, sharing this motherly moment as I sit alone in the moonlight. The end.